Thanks for joining us at the BarkerCast, the only Clive Barker podcast. In episode 361, Jose and Ryan talk with SFX artist and Barker superfan, Midian Crosby, about her inspiration and career. And we geek out a bit with our Barker fandom. Midian has worked on many great projects like Lovecraft Country, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Black Adam, and many more. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime fan of Clive and advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and up to 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. Click on the side banner and follow the link to his Etsy shop to have a look. Texas friends, take a look at Don's art at the Pearland Chamber of Commerce exhibit. All right, well, welcome. This is episode number 361, and good afternoon, Jose.
Hey, how you doing, Ryan?
Good, and we have a special guest today, Midian Crosby.
Hey.
So
hello.
Welcome. Yeah, it's good to see you. First of all, I guess we should probably learn the origin of your name, right? Because we were big into Occupy Midian, so
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the Occupy Midian movement came out, I was telling everybody about it, and I was like, I didn't start it, I promise. So that was really fun to kind of see that come up on a movie that had been largely forgotten by the masses. That meant a lot to me when I first saw it. To go back just a little bit further than that, I think I was maybe 12 or 13 when I discovered the Books of Blood in my brother's bathroom. He's 19 years older than me. I was doing a visit, and I saw that like crazy cover with the like almost like bad special effects mask with the backlight.
Yeah. And the gummy worms and stuff on there.
And I was just fascinated by it. And I just picked it up. To be perfectly honest, I think I stole the book from him. And I was just like, I have to see this. I don't know what's going on. I was already being exposed to all kinds of age-inappropriate films. I had already seen The Thing and Videodrome and I'm sure Hellraiser at that point. My brother showed me all kinds of stuff when I visited. And then I got HBO in my room when I was maybe 12. Wow. So that was, and my parents had a headphone jack put in. So I was up all night long, especially in October, devouring all kinds of strange things. That was like my first introduction to Clive Barker was the Books of Blood. And then I saw the trailer for Nightbreed come out, and I knew I had to see it. And I guess I had already decided to change my name at this point, so I must have read the book. It's the youth time, and I thought about changing my name. A friend of mine had changed her name, and I had hated my name, Jessica, from when I was really little. I didn't connect with it. A bunch of other girls were named Jessica, and it just didn't suit me at all. And I looked for baby names through baby books and everything, and I just kept coming back to Midian, and it was just like, this is the name that speaks to me. I had already just loved seeing the Frankenstein monsters and the X-Men, the strangers, the weirdos that just don't fit in, and I already knew I was one of them. The name meant a lot, but my parents were relieved to know it wasn't just from a horror novel and movie, that it was also biblical.
Sure. He was the son of Abram, right?
Yep. Started the Midianites, almost destroyed the Israelites, had God not stepped down and crushed him. So,
that's right.
Meaning of chaos and destruction, generally not something you would name your baby, but still a beautiful name. I actually know that there's a couple other Midians out there now, which is really cool. We went to the court. My parents said, okay, let's do it. And the summer of my 15th birthday, we did the name change all officially. I had to go in and tell a judge why I wanted to change my name. And it became official the year I went into high school. So it was absolutely perfect. Meeting a bunch of new people. This is my name. And that was still several years before I decided I wanted to do special effects for a living. and create monsters. And so I really feel it's come full circle into, Midian's a safe place for monsters.
That's wonderful. Talk about reinventing yourself in high school, huh?
Absolutely. I also got to meet Clive Barker that summer that I changed my name.
Wow.
I came from signing at the Tattered Cover in Denver, and I got there 2 hours early. I was wrote a whole long letter to him while I was waiting, and he looked up when he said, Midian, your name's Midian. And I said, yes. And he shivered. He actually shivered. He said either eerie or creepy. And I was like, oh, yes, that's fantastic. And it was just so mesmerizing they say don't meet your heroes or whatever. But that same summer, I met Clive Barker as well as Danny Elfman. And Clive Barker was just magical, just stood there listening to him talk. He was very eloquent, always has been, very interested in everybody. And I met Danny Elfman. He was just an LA guy, it was cool, but definitely that was an interesting parallel to look at that summer.
Oh, wonderful. Let me just give you a quick intro because we kind of skipped over the intro on who you are. I'm going to read it straight from your IMDb bio. So you're Monster Makeup FX co-founder with your husband, I believe, and lead makeup artist. Monster Midian Crosby is a female practical effects makeup studio owner and an artist for cinema and media. You've worked in over 75 feature films, probably more at this point, television and commercial media projects, and you have developed a solid reputation for creativity, professionalism, and excellence in your craft. So that's you were also one of our supporters on the Kickstarter, and now you're here with us doing an episode about whatever you want to talk about, and I'm sure it's going to be very Nightbreed and monster makeup effects oriented.
Yeah, and I was amazed. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you've worked on that I'm sure almost all of our listeners will recognize immediately. I mean, so right now, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 hasn't come out yet, but you worked on that, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Lovecraft Country, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, the upcoming Black Adam.
Oh yeah, with The Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
More obscure stuff that some listeners might find interesting. Way back, it did a film called Strange Girls, which is about a pair of kind of twins that do dastardous deeds. And Tales from the Hood, too.
Yeah.
We did a Bigfoot movie called Hoax. We did everything but the Bigfoot. So, all the character looks, hair, makeup, costume, special props, and makeup effects. And that was the last film we did in Colorado before making our way to Georgia, which has been the best move ever. Really tried to avoid LA or New York. I'm from Colorado. Really wanted to just kind of work. I love indie films. I love that camaraderie. I really didn't want to turn this into a job. It was very important to me to kind of keep that love of creating stuff and not to be pigeonholed into one aspect of making movies. And so the fact that Atlanta is now one of the biggest hubs in the U.S., and yet it functions differently from L.A. and New York, that it's got its own vibe, and it's a vibe that's a little more chill. A little more friendly, I think.
Yeah, and Adult Swim, for example, has their studios there, and I'm guessing it's probably got a lot of interesting incentives for production.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
They broke a record. I think it was $4 billion last year or something for production here in Georgia.
Wow,
that's quite an industry.
Yeah, it's been great. It's really pretty. We live in a nice little rural area, and we've got space, which is really nice.
So it's interesting that you started out with the Books of Blood. I think I started with Cabal. That was the first Clive Barker book I've read.
Same here.
Actual novel. The first movie was, of course, Hellraiser, and then I got into other stuff through the comics first, and then it was just later because I lived in Portugal, so I had to rely on imports for Clive Barker books, especially in English, and so I really started out with when I went to Canada in 93, that's when I finally bought my first Clive Barker novel, which was Cabal. And I was like, hey, this is pretty different from the movie. A lot of this stuff is not what the movie shows at all. And then I got that wonderful making of Nightbreed, making of the film. And I was like even more confused because it was like, what are these pictures from? This is not in the film. And I was reading the script and was like, something definitely happened here. It was probably, I was probably 14 when Nightbreed came out. So I didn't really know a lot about the movie industry still. I didn't know about, how a studio could mess up a movie so much. And so it was over the years that we found out. And then, like you said, the Midian, Occupy Midian movement, which we kind of attached ourselves to with Russell and other people and Mark Miller. So that was fun. It was fun to be a part of that in the right moment and to be able to push to finally get to see more stuff. It's like walking through the mirror, right? Go to the other side of the mirror and see an alternate reality where hey, this movie actually has a different ending here. So that was a lot of fun. It's great that you changed your name to Midian. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It really, I think, changed the direction of my life. I think it really speaks a lot about who I am and allowed me to be more who I am. And funny thing is I did see Nightbreed in the theater, but my mom had to lie about my age to get me in. Mm-hmm. Because I think I was 14. I don't know. Okay. I meant to do the math to figure out when it came out because I saw the movie before I changed my name because it really, I think it was me and 6 other people, and my parents were going to see Henry V, and we were at the ticket counter, and he looked up and he was like, "Who's going to see Midian?" And my mom said, "She is," and she says, "Is she 17?" And she goes, "Yes." At that point, they hadn't gotten into asking for ID. A lot of kids didn't have ID, so it was just parents' word, go for it. There I was, Peter, watching this wild stuff that just blew my mind. So,
one interesting thing about that too is that I think that Clive had spent so much time being embarrassed by Nightbreed and what was done to it, and he used to have a hard time talking about it when fans would approach him about it because it was, the movie was in a way taken away from him, and they hired a new editor, and well, you know all that stuff. But now he feels more proud and more able to talk about it. I mean, when I talked to him about it, it was in the terms of when is this direct? This was 95, and when I talked to him about Nightbreed, and it was more in the direction of when we get the director's cut done, it's going to be 25 minutes longer, and it's going to have all kinds of new stuff that you'd never seen before. And he didn't know back then how hard it would be to try to track down the missing footage and stuff. And he said, of course, then it was going to be a director's cut Laserdisc.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the industry? What was your first professional job?
My first job, I mean, other than kind of playing around with friends in college with kind of their no budget stuff, was the
Pittsburgh.
Wicked. Yeah, in Pittsburgh. I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. I have an industrial design degree specializing in special effects, and started working on films probably within my first year, meeting people and doing stuff. Kind of worked with the director, Michael Schneider, out there, who does some really weird shit. The first film we worked on was The Wickeds, which was a zombie vampire movie, really low budget, shot in Virginia. And it does have Ron Jeremy in it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was the very first film that I worked on that had a budget of any kind.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. Anytime we came onto set, it was, "Hey, ladies."
Jeez.
So yeah, that was fun though. And just always, my heart belongs to horror and sci-fi and dark children's stories. I just got a dark crystal tattoo.
Oh wow! Yeah.
But
yeah, the Skeksis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Done in the 4 different movie fonts of the films that inspired me highly was
Thing,
Blade Runner, Nightbreed is the never with a little.
Yep.
I took the upside down cross out of that one.
And Alien.
So
Yeah.
good stuff. Never really kind of into the slasher film. Always really wanting to for that deeper meaning and that kind of like more primal psychosis of where we go when we're scared. And I think my favorite thing, kind of just to jump around a little bit about Clive Barker and the stories that he told, is that there's a gray area within all of us. You know, there are no heroes, there are no villains. We are all this kind of like weird mush of awful and wonderful things, and there's a sensitivity to the evil characters that makes them real, and there's a flaw to our heroes that make them vulnerable, and that's what makes people interesting. That's what makes us all interesting, are the flaws.
I agree. It's like sometimes the villain is the hero of his own story. At least he sees himself that way. And that can be translated in a lot of Clive Barker stories, like, the Damnation Game. I mean, Mamoulian doesn't think of himself as a particular villain, just someone trying to find companionship in eternity and is tired of the world. And I think that in The Great and Secret Show, the Jaff, I think he's also kind of seeing himself a bit as, he wants to be the hero that manipulates reality and stuff, but he just ends up finding himself that in a role that he never wanted. So I think that really adds humanity to the villain characters in Clive Barker's work.
It seems like there's one villain that's redeemable and then another level of villain that's not. Like you've got the Jaff, but you also have Kassoon, right? And Kassoon is just vile and not. It's a lot harder to sympathize with him. You've got Christopher Carrion, but then you've also got Mater Motley, and Mater Motley is horrible. Yeah.
Just like, you got Mamoulian in The Great and Secret and the Damnation Game, and you have Breer. Breer is definitely like beastly, evil, a monster. And Mamoulian is a monster, but he's got something that makes you feel a little sorry for him because he's been lonely all his life and he just is tired of being this eternal vampire almost. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of interesting humanity in these villains that Clive Barker comes up with. And it's not just an unstoppable killing machine that doesn't speak, even though those are fun too. I mean, those are really fun. I mean, I just watched Jason Goes to Manhattan, and it's like, what a fun movie that is. It's just
Is that where he punches the boxer's head off?
Yes. Yeah. And he's walking down the street. A bunch of punks are listening to music, and he keeps walking and kicks their boombox. And it's like, that scene is so out of place because then they chase him and he takes his mask off and you see like whoa. It's like almost like a funny Pee Wee Herman kind of movie moment, but it's just hilarious how they did that stuff. That's just great.
That's special effects. Like, you have special effects movie, and that's what those are. It's just like the Saw movies. You're waiting for the next kill because you want to see that creative, like how are they going to make somebody die this time? Yeah. And you really weird with it and sometimes kind of hilarious with it in order to do something different because everything's been done. That is part of the fun of special effects and horror movies in general is you do get to kind of like explore different killing styles.
And even monster makeup went through some very different paradigm changes. I mean, they used to do it out of the makeup kit, right? If you go back to people like, Lon Chaney Sr. and, the guy who created the Frankenstein makeup, I forgot his name now. They used to construct the makeups while the person was in the chair with cotton and collodium and all sorts of weird things, right? And then once latex and alginate and, polyurethane got into the scene, it really changed how people do makeups. And it became a completely different paradigm, right?
Absolutely. And and it keeps growing. Just in the last 10, 15 years, we have two of the most common materials that didn't exist kind of prior to that. And we have Prosaide transfers. So we have like basically flat prosthetics that self-glue to the person. and just stay like gangbusters all day long. And so like today, if you were doing a Boone style like breed makeup, you would definitely do that in Prosaide transfers. It would be much quicker. It would be like the way the Drax makeup is done. Different pieces are just kind of laid on, and then it's super flexible. And it just stays on all day. And that was only just officially invented for Passion of Christ, which was like late 90s?
Yeah, Jim Caviezel. Yeah.
So, that was kind of like early technology then. And now we kind of do it a little bit different, and it's gotten a little bit better. But instead of foam latex, now we do encapsulated silicone pieces. It heightens the realistic nature of most makeups of prosthetic makeups, because foam latex is opaque and silicone mimics skin more actively, like transparency. So you can kind of really see the light through it. You can paint it more realistically, and it fools the eye much better. The new developments on that just make us able to do so much finer and more detailed work. I have to say that I'm really excited that I can't say what, but I got to do some foam latex this year. And that's where you get to kind of get the bigger pieces and like the lighter weight stuff. And, being a big fan of like, Meg Mucklebones and Darkness from like Legend as well, like those big prosthetic makeups.
Yeah.
Can't do those with anything other than foam latex. And I'm a foam latex fan. We have a foam latex oven named Euphigenia, named after Mrs. Fire.
Iphigenia Doubtfire. Got it. Latex is better for that specularity in the skin and stuff, but I guess foam latex works better for like more opaque, flat colors or, painted, makeups, right? Bright colors and stuff.
Well, it's just it's a weight factor. Silicone is heavy. Foam latex is super light. And so you can make, an alien costume with foam latex because you can pile all this stuff on somebody without it being 250 pounds. So that's really the if you get too big, you got to go foam. So, yeah.
And fabrication is also a pretty big part of creating a character, right? I mean, people tend to think about the makeup, but the costumes. I mean, you look at the costumes in movies, you can tell if a costume is cheap. It's going to detract from the makeup. It's going to detract from the lifelike appearance of the creature or the character or whatever. So fabrication has a lot to do also with how the character works. Like, look at those leather outfits that the Cenobites had. Those were amazing. I mean, and in later movies, you see that they got a little cheaper with them, like Cheddar is wearing some biker pants and whatever. It's not the same, but definitely fabrication also is a overlooked thing, I think, for audiences when they're looking at special effects, and it's very important.
Yeah, we've gotten, with Monster Makeup Effects, one of the reasons we named it Monster Makeup Effects is that we wanted to put the monsters in there because I always want more monsters. There always needs to be more monsters. Filmmakers listening, please put monsters in movies. All of us special effects makeup artists, we really want to do it, and we can do it for the right price, depending on what you need. It's just like, it's malleable. We can make these creatures exist, but we need you guys to want them practically, because a CGI monster is not the same. It is not the same. Just please minimize that.
Yeah.
Because you got to have that real thing that your actors are interacting with, and your DP can light properly, because it's just not there if it's not there. But Monster Makeup Effects, it was kind of like, trying to push that out there. Before we started the company Monster Makeup Effects, I didn't hear the term being used, Monster Makeup Effects, for that act. It was like Monster being Monster Midian, which is my nickname, where you can find me on social media. That was a persona I created in college, and have kind of continued as a nickname throughout. And so really it just became shortening of the business name, which was Monster Media Makeup and Effects, to just Monster Makeup Effects, when it became kind of more than just me. We grew a little bit, leaving that monster in there, and then now hearing people refer to creature effects as monster makeup effects. That hadn't happened. I hadn't seen it before we had named that, but oftentimes that's kind of what happens. But just to jump back before I forget, you were talking about how Clive Barker is very had been disappointed. And I know that had not been the first time in his career for filmmaking. And I'm sure it was pretty devastating every time it happened. But I think that first time I met him when I was 15, I probably brought up the worst one because I didn't know that one of my favorite stories is the Yattering and Jack. I love the story so much and I see it so clearly and it makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
And I wrote, that letter I wrote to him as I was waiting. I talk all about that. And then after I had given them that letter and walked away, I realized that they had made, what is it, a Tales from the Dark Side?
Yeah, Tales from the Dark Side. Yeah. That's right.
Oh, yeah. And it was so bad. Like, oh, please don't put a little person as the Yattering. Come on.
Yeah.
More than any other story like this one I would love to see done today with today's capabilities for effects and creature making and really Yattering both like terrifying and sympathetic and just pathetic and perhaps set it in like some kind of cool era, whether it be like the 50s or something like that where you can really kind of like pepper the flavor of this story and fill it out, just really torment both characters just so eloquently.
Oh yeah.
Instead of having Phil Fondacaro painted red, and you met him, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I did. I talked to him a little bit about doing that. He was surprised. That's like not the thing that everybody remembers him for.
No.
Yeah. But you were talking about the practical effects, and something that made me think of is versus CGI, is that this move to 4K. It makes you wonder if the movies that are getting blown up to 4K, if the CGI monsters in them are going to get pixelated. When that happens.
I ask you this: have you seen Brotherhood of the Wolf recently?
No.
Everything that's practical in that movie holds up beautifully. CGI portions looked bad on the day. It was not my favorite at the day, but if you see it now, it literally ruins the movie.
Oh, I'm a big fan of Alien 3, and now I'm a little bit afraid to see that and what that's going to look like in 4K. The small amount of CGI alien portions of it, I guess.
I think they're good. I mean, I think it stands up. There's definitely movies, if you start going back a little too far, they start looking like PlayStation 1 graphics, and then it becomes a little but they upscale that stuff and they filter it and they try to make it better, I guess. It's just what it is. I mean, there's just that. It becomes part of the charm, I think, just like seeing the cables behind Candyman or, whatever. It's just becomes
like it's different, though. Like I just saw, you guys seen Prey yet?
No.
No.
But I really want to. Everybody's talking about it. I don't have Hulu, but I need to
I might go see it. I might go see it tonight. And if I do, I'll let you know. But I'll probably subscribe back on Hulu and watch that stuff. There's a few things I want to watch. And hey, in maybe a couple more months, we'll have Hellraiser to watch on Hulu. So that's going to be cool.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's when I planned on getting Hulu back, but it's like now everybody's talking about Prey. I really want to see that.
Yeah, for sure. It's but the superfluous VFX. I won't spoil anything, but the superfluous VFX in that I feel detract from the film, and the practical effects, which is the Predator, the suit, are all beautiful. It's worth seeing, but there are some cringeworthy VFX.
Oh, really?
Not necessary. It's just
from the trailers you see that when he goes invisible, he have this like fiery effect like over his body. And I think the one in the original movie was just so cool because it's like you can tell it makes it more believable to think, oh, it's an invisibility cloak, but you can still see him. It's kind of like bending the light a little bit. So nowadays it's just that weird like orange like he's burning into the into invisibility. And I think the original one was cooler because definitely looks more practical.
exactly. And it's just like having just seen the thing multiple times on this big screen. Like the things that don't hold up are literally the old school computers. I mean, it's just like you just have to place it in that time frame.
Yeah.
But all the good practical effects, like they still look good, man.
I remember when Hercules first came on TV, seeing that and thinking, man, these are really terrible CGI effects. Even at the time, they looked really bad.
You're talking about the Kevin Sorbo show,
yes,
right?
Yeah,
oh, boy.
exactly.
TV has really upped its game.
I didn't get into that Hercules. I got a little bit into Xenia because it was playing in Portugal at the time. I was like, okay, sure, Lucy Lawless, Xenia, I'll watch it. And it was fun. It was a fun show. I didn't expect it to be like mind-blowing.
I think that one was a spin-off of Hercules, right? But it was more popular than Hercules. I think
so, was. Yeah. It's just like when they had a Conan TV show that was terrible. I'd much rather watch the cartoon version of Conan the Barbarian.
Oh.
Yeah, Conan as a kid.
But hey, it was a great vehicle.
Practicing with my wooden sword that my dad made me every day because if it's not good enough, he was going to get me a real sword, and I wasn't going to be Of course, I loved Grace Jones's character in what was it, Conan the Destroyer, or anyway, her character.
Conan the Destroyer.
I think one of the first superhero TV shows I ever saw was probably Wonder Woman back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
That was probably it. I remember Linda Carter. And she was just, there's no phone booths available. She would just twirl around and change into her costume and fly her little invisible plane, which was clearly just a green screen thing and nothing was moving.
And she would block bullets with her bracelets.
Yeah, she's a badass. Did you grow up reading some of those books, or did you eventually get into those like Dick Smith's monster makeup book and that kind of stuff? Do you have those in your bookshelf?
I absolutely do now. I think the things that I really started with having my brother that Sean, 19 years older than me, coming and introducing me to a lot of the stuff that he was into. He would be bringing Cinema Fantastique magazine and Korea. And he'd be showing kind of the stuff from behind the scenes in the movies. The problem was that I grew up in Boulder, Colorado. And so there was nobody I knew. I mean, they make some commercials in Denver, but it's not a film hub. There's nobody I know that does special effects in Denver. There's only a couple now. It's grown, throughout the country, but I didn't know how to get into it. I think from a very early age, I wanted to work in film. I wanted to first be an actor. I did a lot of theater, but as soon as the camera got put on me and I had to face myself, that was all done. For the most part, I did act in an unreleased film called The Screening, made by George Romero's son. That was an interesting experience. That was in Pittsburgh. Hopefully someday he'll put it out because it's kind of fun. We did a lot of stuff for that, special effects, but I got to play a character named Bat, this goth, death-obsessed girl, and that was fun.
Yeah. So by Romero's son?
Yeah.
Cool.
And Cameron Romero. And he's still in film. He does quite a bit of stuff. It was his first film. I'm sure that's a tough one to release. I can understand that, having directed a couple of shorts that, you'd always want to do something better with it. You always want to have more money or more time. And I don't know how any creative individual without a deadline and somebody there to take it away from you ever gets anything done, because it's never good enough. It's always lacking. And you have to just, they say it, it's like no great work of art is ever finished. It's only abandoned.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think as artists, that's probably one of the biggest things that we have to battle is being okay with stuff that we set out into the world.
That's self-criticism. Sometimes you can be your worst critic, but you don't realize that other people want to be supportive and they want to see what you did, and they'll probably find enjoyment in it. And it's like just put it out there. Let it live.
And that perfectionism, the flaws that you see probably are things that other people can't even see.
Exactly.
when you're an expert in something, you do tend to see those flaws more clearly and more glaringly, popping out at you than anybody else. I mean, that's true.
Yeah. A warning to anybody who wants to work in film: you will never look at film the same way. Again, it's so hard to just immerse yourself in just the story now, because you're always looking at the lighting, the character design, the story, the editing, you start to break it down and you see the little the continuity errors and it's all just a distraction. So ultimately, I feel like it's people in film, I'm glad they're the ones voting on, at least the awards programs that do happen, is because these are the people that are noticing. And if they're enjoying it, if people in film are enjoying it, it means that they've gotten past some of those defenses, and they're able to just immerse people in the story enough. We say that, if somebody sees the fact that, you've got a little tag or a something on the or the little seam on the back of the head, then something else is going wrong. Something else in the story is not engaging the audience enough, and they're able to notice these things. So that goes for a lot of, what we do.
I think one of the most fascinating things about movies and movie making is that when you see other kinds of art, like when you see a painting or a sculpture, that is what the artist worked in, and that is the final version, and that's the only version that exists. Maybe there's study paintings, maybe there's stuff, but ultimately you look at a painting and that is the one thing that was created. But in movie making, sometimes you don't get to see all the other stuff that never made it into the movie, because different takes can be so different sometimes. And, especially when you got some of those more method actors and stuff. I read stuff about movies. I love when DVDs came out, I became enamored with the making of features, because it was just such an amazing education to know, oh, this is what they were doing. This is what the set looked like. Oh, this is when they were creating the makeups. This is how they lit the scene. And you get to see all that stuff. It's all done in layers. It's the sound is not sometimes captured on the actual scene. Well, nowadays it is, but in the old days it used to be they would just shoot the film and then they would dub everything in. And then you see how the people who do ADR do it, walking on bits of glass or gravel in a studio to make the movie become immersive and come to life. But when I see sometimes work prints, because I collect work prints sometimes, if I can find a work print of a movie, I'll snag that thing and I'll look at it. You have a tattoo of the Dark Crystal. In the beginning, it's amazing to find out that Jim Henson wanted all the characters to speak in their own languages, and you wouldn't even understand most of it. You would just catch things here and there because of what they were doing. And then, of course, they decided, let's just make them all speak in English. Like the Skeksis would speak in their complete different language that you wouldn't even understand. And then they decided, we got to give them lines and stuff. So there's a darker cut of the Dark Crystal. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I have it.
You have it like a black and white, darker crystal. It's kind of interesting to see that. In movies, there's so much that gets recorded that never makes it to the final cut. And so that's why this whole Occupy Midian and creating a different cut of the movie was so appealing and so much fun to do, because we got to experience some stuff that other people probably never saw, but like the footage that we were able to be shown that tells you just exactly how many different takes of a scene there are. And even though there's no sound to those, because this was done in a MOS kind of shot, so it's motion only, or there's no sound, they would dub everything in later. But you get to see all this stuff. It's like, this is just hanging out in a warehouse, in a pallet, and you just get to see the movie that the editor and the director finally decided on.
In a cave.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point is that movies are so organic. They have so much stuff that we never get to see.
Yeah.
And so whenever that stuff resurfaces in like a making of, or, a documentary about making the movie or something like that, it's always fascinating to see, look at all the stuff that they shot. They shot so many different takes. And sometimes the actor says one line in a different way, and then the next take you'll do a different read of it, and then they just have to make decisions and put it together.
Even with and Nightbreed is the biggest example of that, because that movie was a choose your own adventure when they were editing the director's cut, because there were multiple paths they could take. Right.
Yeah.
So like if Hugh Corshey's character, now for some reason the character name is I'm blanking on it. But,
the inspector.
Yeah, well, Joyce, right?
Joyce.
If he lives, right, if he gets slashed on the arm instead of across the throat, if he lives, then he goes on to rescue Babette. But then you don't have as much of a building of the relationship between Laurie and Babette, because then you can have Laurie rescue him instead. But if you do that, then you don't get to see Babette's father, Toledo, the werewolf, because she's kneeling over his body when Hugh Corshey's character, Joyce, rescues her. So it's like, yeah, there's so much, kind of nerding out a little bit on Nightbreed, but there's just so much, there's like 3 or 4 different paths in that movie that it can go that completely change the focus of some parts.
It's like Clive Barker says in his making of introduction for Nightbreed, the book. It says it starts with movies change and change and change. And here's a book that's really cool. I recommend this one. It's Men, Makeup, and Monsters by Tony Timpone with a foreword by Clive Barker. Oh. And there's a lot of cool stuff here. There's a whole chapter about Nightbreed. And you got a little section with Bob Keane talking about the Nightbreed movie. So that's one in my collection that I definitely recommend for people who want to know more about. You got Dick Smith, you got Rick Baker. It's a really good book. Speaking of Babette actually lives in Georgia right now.
Oh, really?
I got to hold her recently, and
oh my gosh.
She is owned by Andre Freitas at AFX Studio. And he had her under glass, and he asked me if I wanted to hold her for a photo.
Oh, you're talking the one that was lying in the sun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking one of the two twin actresses, like,
no,
somebody owns her.
Like, most of me as a special effects artist, and the cable controlled creature. It was a really special moment in my life. This happened just a couple months ago. And so,
cool. Oh, wow.
How is it holding up? Surprisingly well. Yeah. Okay. Surprisingly well. It's a little fragile. It certainly was delicate, but everything looks fantastic. Of course, the cables are cut, and he keeps it under glass. So
that's cool.
He's very respectful of a lot of his pieces. I remember seeing one of the original masks for Decker on eBay many years ago, and it was just completely rotting out. It was just shriveled, dark. A bottom part of it was already missing, and it was just on top of a mannequin head. But I remember seeing that, and at the time I couldn't afford it, but I was in my 20s. But I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, wow, that thing just completely deteriorated. And that's just polyurethane. It just deteriorates with the UV light and stuff. So that stuff sometimes doesn't last too long. One of the things that I think is most cool about special effects, and I don't keep a lot of stuff. I know molds and all this stuff are kind of like a big thing for special effects studios, but to kind of have this collection of things that they can go into and just run. But having grown up with a lot of Buddhist kind of ideologies and things like that, there's something really wonderful about the idea of temporary art. When we finish a special effects makeup, it literally begins to age immediately. There's no time it's going to look better than when it's first completed. And usually when they're shooting it, it's about 14, 16 hours later. The process of holding that together all day long and then just destroying it at the end of the day after it's been hopefully immortalized. Just like a mandala, right? Exactly. There's something kind of spiritual about it and that I really enjoy, just to kind of make something and then let it go, give way to its other incarnation. And so that is something I've really kind of tried to embrace. The other thing that I find interesting is that before I went to school to learn special effects,
I was a pretty big collector. I collected a lot of comic books and toys and collectibles of all types. And I don't know, partially it's probably because I was a poor college student, but partially too when I learned how to create stuff, that need to collect things kind of lessened. I don't need things as much because I have the ability to create things. And so I think that has something to do with that.
Yeah, like you can turn your ideas into real things and then put them out into the world. They don't have to stay with you all the time. I guess I could see that, right? You give them a life of their own. And
even if I don't do it, the fact that I could do it helps the mindset.
Sure. The props that I've collected over the years, I've collected the Midian key, the one that Lylesburg has around as one of them at least, because according to the guy who worked in the movie, there might have been more than one. But it's funny how you were mentioning the props and stuff that they make for movies. It's only going to look as good as it's going to get for that particular shot, and then it's gone. When you get to see those props, and, you know, we can talk a lot about what's camera ready and stuff, but it only needs to look good on camera with that particular lighting, because when you see it outside of the movie, the Midian key is literally just a piece of PVC pipe with some Sculpey making the M around it, and then a basic chain, and that's all it is. And then you look at it, you're like, oh, okay. That's still cool, though. I got the prop. But it's like it's literally a slice of PVC piping, and it's got that Sculpey thing, a little hinge to rotate it when the guy opens the Berserker door. But it's so cool to have that. You're like, hey, this was part of the movie, and now I have it. And I think I also have a plaster of Paris skull that was supposed to be one of the skulls in the Nightbreed background. Unfortunately, that thing was so fragile that when it got shipped to us, it got smashed. So it was shipped to Portugal, and the jaw was completely broken into a million pieces. So I had to I had it in a box like that for the longest time. And then I was like, I'm going to try to put this together just to give it a try. And I kind of did. And it kind of worked out a little bit, but definitely there's pieces missing. But it was fun to have that be like, hey, here's a skull from the Nightbreed, and here's the Nightbreed medallion. And it's now a part of my collection. So it's great to have that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a friend who got into filmmaking from Colorado. But when she first started doing stuff with like cosplay stuff, she would always kind of like downgrade her stuff. Oh, it's just like whatever I have laying around the house, and like it's PVC and et cetera, et cetera. And I kept telling her, it's like, that's all it is. That's all any of this is us like putting stuff together and making it look good, like putting some polish on it, you know?
It's not a real blacksmith making that armor you see in the movie. That's probably like foam painted to look like metal.
Yes.
And literally. So you've worked in the Walking Dead TV show, right?
Yes.
How is that experience like? Because I feel like every time I see all those zombies on set at the same time, and I know for sure there's hero makeups and there's the ones who are mostly in the back and stuff, but I can't even imagine, how does that even work? Clothes are tattered and goopy, and then you have to put all sorts of slimes on them, and then it's like, how is that experience like? How comfortable is that for the actors, and does that makeup smell in any way? What are we experiencing on set in a Walking Dead episode?
Right. Well, to be fair, I've done a little bit on the makeup team, no effects, but quite a bit on the costume, and some of the tattered stuff is definitely where I was with the aging and dying. Good portion of the time I worked there. It was the first show that I worked on in Georgia when we first moved here, and didn't know anybody in makeup, kind of just dove in to just kind of like get into the scene here, and was super stoked to get kind of on The Walking Dead. Let me just say, you asked if it was comfortable for the actors. I don't think The Walking Dead is comfortable for anyone. It is, it is a rough show, and anybody that's worked on it will tell you that it is a difficult place to be. But having come from like an indie filmmaking place, it was just basically kind of like indie, but with better catering. And, we're out in the woods all day, 16-hour days or whatever it might be. It's the bugs and it's the heat, and it's kind of like war. It's like if you've lived through that, you're always connecting with other people that have worked on The Walking Dead, and you're like, yeah, we did it, right? Like, survived, and there's some people that did all 11 seasons, and oh my goodness, like that's crazy. I did day played kind of the end of season 8, a good portion of season 9, and the beginning of season 10. It's a bunch of great people, like really making it happen, total pros. It's like any show, like, whether it be, I was going to say Guardians. I have to say Guardians was the best show I've ever worked on.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was like magical in so many ways. Great team, great department heads, great story, great fun. I can't wait for everybody to see that. So, it's like with The Walking Dead, they've got, you get enough people, you kind of assemble it in a way that you got your best people doing the best ones, and you've got, kind of the step downs, and you get enough people to make it happen. And they've got to be, and I have to say that show really can chew through some people, because it's hard. It's hard. It's not necessarily the work that's hard. It's the places. It is the heat and the sun and the bugs. So there was one day, both my husband and I were working on The Dead in costumes, season 9, and we came home with 7 ticks between us. And that was the time that either of us had to deal with that. And I think it was 9, but 2 of them were still crawling, so we didn't count those. And so we had to like trade off and like pull each other's ticks off. And it was really...
Don't you have to like set them on, burn them to make them let go?
There's a bunch of different ways. The best way is to gently pull on them until they pull their head out. And these were nymphs, so they were young. They hadn't been on deer or any other animals.
Oh, okay.
So we were like really good for not like getting any of the terrible diseases. There's one that actually a friend of mine has where you can no longer eat meat, like red meat.
Oh yeah, Lyme disease, right?
Well, it's an offshoot of Lyme disease, I think. But,
okay, yeah. Because I know that's one of the things that people with Lyme disease that recover is they get an aversion to meat.
It's so strange, and there's a lot of that you have to deal with. Snakes. There's a fair amount of snakes. They have a snake wrangler that goes around and just makes sure that the area is pretty safe. There was one day I was just sitting on a log near a creek, and the biggest snake I have ever seen in actuality, big, black, non-harmless, or harmless, I should say, snake came right up on the log and like reared up and almost like looked me in the eye.
Damn.
That snake was a jerk.
And I was like, hey, buddy, what's going on?
Yeah.
Kind of scooting to the side, and somebody behind, like, it's non-venomous, you're fine. And I kind of saw it as like, I'll just take this as like a spiritual animal kind of like moment, being year of the snake in the Chinese zodiac, and kind of being out there in his territory. He was just coming to check me out. Oh. And but boy, it was interesting.
Wow.
So you mentioned the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Drax makeup, which are the Prosaide transfers?
Prosaide transfers, yeah. So prosthetic adhesive is the kind of it was designed for medical prosthesis, noses and such, and so makeup effects industry has used that for many years to glue all types of prosthetics down. But Tinsley, in the makeup effects world, kind of saw chefs basically putting like frosting and things to molds and then freezing them and then popping them out as designs. And so that kind of gave my idea to try it with Prosaide. I mean, special effects artists are kind of one part mad scientist, We're kind of looking for some kind of new material to do something that isn't necessarily designed to do. But so that's what he did. He kind of like thickened up some Prosaide, put it in there and froze it, and was able to pop it out and then dehydrated it. And so there's kind of a slightly different process that we do now that's a little bit less time consuming. But these things are fantastic, and they stick so well, and they're not like flopping off all day long. It's really the hardest part about Prosaide transfers is the removal process. And there's a special process for that if you do it right, it works. And if you do it wrong, it takes a lot longer. And
Yeah.
so these little tricks and things like that are the most wonderful thing about working with other people, especially a lot of people. Like a big show like that is that you're constantly picking up wonderful tips from absolute legends in this industry and being able to work with a myriad of wonderful artists from around the country. Special effects artists are wonderful people, the majority. They, having had Dick Smith as kind of a legendary icon amongst, at least most of the older school folks. Some of the new folks don't really know who he is, but they should. Is, his ability to just, take a phone call at 2:00 in the morning from a distressed makeup artist that needs to know how to do X, Y, and Z, and his absolute, here, let me talk to you for an hour and a half on all the things that I think, will help you. And that generosity is something that many of us still hold dear and work into our own abilities. And most of us, if you ask us a question, we're going to get really nerdy about it. We're going to be excited to talk about it. And that's what's great about special effects artists.
That's so cool.
We're learning to do always, because it's a complicated field.
It's cool that it's a competitive industry, but the special effects artists don't treat it that way. Right, that they're all looking to help each other and make the entire industry better, rather than this is a trade secret. I'm not telling you how I did that.
Right, for the most part.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, they're still trade secrets, but and they're also really committed to their craft, because imagine one of your favorite movies is The Thing, right? So Rob Bottin, he ended up having to check himself into the hospital because he was just spending so much time doing special effects for The Thing. He was just sleeping in the set and, just working with all sorts of chemicals. And by the end of the movie, Carpenter walked past him and said, "You don't look all right. You should go to the hospital," because he was exhausted.
The studio. And my favorite part of the interview, the behind the scenes on some of that stuff, is where he describes all that awful stuff. And then he laughs and he goes, "I don't do that anymore." And that's how I feel like I've finally gotten to that point in my career where I don't have to really suffer anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, the first 10 years of my career, it's just get as many credits as you can, do it for whatever you can get, and just get the experience and do it over and over again. And that stuff is hard. It kicks your ass. Yeah. And I think the hardest job I've ever done was working on Hoax. And the problem there was I bit off more than I could chew. I was the costume designer, the hair designer, the makeup designer, the makeup effects designer, special prop builder, and I had one full-time person to help me. And we had a core crew, cast from LA of 9 ensemble casts. And it was just too much. It was too much. But that was the last show we did before leaving Colorado. And that was that's kind of the level of hustle you have to have when you're outside of a major market. We were prop builders. We were specialty costume builders. We were whatever we needed to be. We taught classes. I tell you what, there are many a time where a film student paid our bills for the month because we were the only people getting paid on that student film because they needed special effects. And it was a great incubator for us to kind of be in that market and open our studio there and kind of really get kind of used to working on as many films as possible. But Hoax kind of pushed us over the edge and told us that we needed to do something else other than be in Colorado. And we closed our brick and mortar studio and moved into a 37-foot toy hauler RV and went around the country for about a year and a half. And we ended up in Georgia. We did a feature in LA. We came back through Colorado for some reshoots. We went through New Mexico and Nevada, and we went up to Ohio, did some stuff up there. We did some stuff in Oklahoma. And it was just all kind of checking out the film markets in all of as much of the country as we could. And then when we hit Georgia, it was like a light bulb went off. I'd say within 2 weeks, I changed my ID and I switched my union membership. And it was just nope, this is the place for us. It's been a wild ride. But I'm really glad to say that as much as I love indie films, and indie films will always be part of my heart, and an independent filmmaker. I have, a few things that I want to do in the future, but it's really nice to be working on some of the bigger stuff with some absolutely legendary, wonderful artists. Working with other people is wonderful. In the indie scene, you don't get as big a team. And sometimes you really luck out on these big things with spectacular teams of people.
Another thing that I usually effects artists are into is masks. So I think we remember the old Don Post masks that we would see in the magazines and comic books. We all know how they looked like, the big Tor Johnson zombie mask and whatever. You've done some work for a mask company, haven't you?
Did. Right out of college, I worked at Spectre Studios for, I think, almost 5 years. And we did masks, strap-on wings, and like half masks and costumes. And it was high quality American-made fright. Mm-hmm. And the hard part for any mask company working out of the U.S. is price points. As far as, one of the main things that we had to deal with on a yearly basis is we'd come up with 20 new products, and someone in China has ripped off 7 of our last year's products already. To keep ahead of that, and they're making it for a third of the price. It looks shitty, but of course people are going to just buy the cheap one that's readily available. And so it was definitely a competition area, but it was a really great place to, come up with new ideas for different things. We actually had a Tor Johnson mask point.
Classic.
I got to do a lot of sculpting and kind of design products there. I was also in charge of their social media and website. And it was an interesting time, but I knew that I really wanted to work in film, and I kept kind of pulling away from there and asking for more time off and flexible hours to just kind of go and do this film or that film. And it ultimately kind of strained the relationship a bit. And we actually made a music video there with Greg Nicotero's uncle.
Really?
In the screening. We met him on the screening, and Greg Nicotero and Frank Nicotero are both in the screening, which was fun. We actually got to do a gutted effect on Greg. We was going to see,
you think that might be on YouTube or something?
No.
No. Okay. What year was that?
I don't know. I'd have to IMDb it.
Okay. That's fine.
We worked on it probably 2005.
Okay.
Or so that it's ish, it was finished. Sam Nicotero was quite a character. He was in the Mothman Prophecies and one of the Children of the Living Dead. But he came out and was willing to be an actor for this music video I did for a friend of mine that we did at Spectre Studios, which is stuff that we had laying around. And this is the thing I kind of co-directed, and it was a blast. It was a music video for a band called This Wicked, and called The Video Dead. If you've ever seen the old movie.
Oh yeah, The Video Dead, awesome movie.
The zombies come out of the TV. Well, we kind of did a parody of that. The zombies come out of the TV and they bite every band member, and then all the band members are zombies and they're rocking on the bus.
What's the name of the band?
This Wicked.
This Wicked. I'm
trying to Google that to see if I can find that music video.
Wicked. In This Wicked together, it'll probably all come up. That was kind of the last thing that happened at Spectre Studios, and unfortunately, Wanda, the lead singer of the band, died in a car accident before the music video was done. And we had kind of a rift that happened with the editor there, and I wanted to get it done, and so I actually basically took the footage and quit. And then got done and gave it to her mom, and kind of had to finish that aspect of mourning a good friend of mine. But she was my co-artist on the screening, and we kind of inspired each other. She was a beauty makeup artist, me as a special effects artist, and us kind of getting to know kind of the other side of the art that we did. And so that was a really special time. Even though it ended in tragedy, it all ends in tragedy. Surprise, folks. That's why we love the story with a tragic ending, because we're in it. This is us getting used to what we go through in life, right?
Well, not trying to bring up another Clive Barker quote, the playwright Plutharocexus that says that every story ends in death. once the curtain is drawn and the prince kisses the princess, we get to see the inevitable, decline of the story where all the characters end up ending their lives. But it's just the way it is. The magic is in knowing where to start and stop and, what to pay attention to. That's what matters.
In Magica, right?
That's it, yes. Plutharokexis, the playwright, that's from Magica. What other Clive Barker books do you like?
One of my early faves was Weaveworld and The Thief of Always. Again, the dark kind of children's stories really kind of hit me hard. I love the illustrations in The Thief of Always. The Great Gray Beast of February. Just love it.
I got to see him read that chapter in a book signing in Seattle for The Thief of Always, and that was so cool. I bet go back in time and do it again.
Yeah. And I bet that as a creative effects artist, you probably have looked at those drawings and think, I could make a makeup like this.
Definitely, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. Thief of Always. There's one that's been promised over and over for decades to be a movie.
And it needs to be dark, not silly cartoony like that. I'm glad Clive Barker kind of set that limit. Like, no, we're not going to do this like cheesy cartoony thing, because it should be dark. It is dark.
And we want to feel the emotion of him losing all that time, and even though he gets it back again at the end, it's still, that's heartbreaking.
There's a good chance that we might be seeing that project that was announced recently by Clive Barker, which is that they're going to make almost like the Sex, Death, and Robots kind of anthology of shorts. They're working on adapting some Books of Blood stories into shorts like that. There would be like 20-minute shorts.
Animated, yeah.
Yeah. So with some new ideas that he threw in there, also not just Books of Blood published stories, but also some new ideas that he would throw in there. So maybe we'll get to see that in the near future, because I think, sure, full feature films are great. And, it's a wonderful, magic thing to go into a theater and watch it or stream it nowadays. But I think animation also gives you a wider scope of what you can show on the screen, because you're always grounded in live action films, you're always grounded by the physicality of it. But in animation, you can do anything. I mean, nowadays with CGI, arguably, you can do anything in live action too.
And even in a more pragmatic, if a story only needs to be 40 minutes, right, you can do that animated. But if it's a feature film, they'd have to pad it out for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Shorts. Like, my favorite thing to do at a horror film festival is catch as many shorts programs as I can.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great way to kind of just fall into a moment and kind of get a feeling for something different. I'd love to see an animated How Spoilers Bleed.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be tough to watch. That would be so brutal.
But it would be beautiful.
Yeah.
The last season of Love, Death, and Robots was just, I mean, they're both seasons. Like, there was one, Snow in the Desert.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm watching it, I actually complimented the makeup effects and had to remind myself that it wasn't practical.
Right.
Wow.
Happened. The one that with the guy, the deaf character.
Yeah, Jabaro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I actually Googled it, I was like, did they blah blah blah? I was like, because she just looks so amazing.
Have you seen some cosplay that people are doing of that character? It's amazing. They cover themselves in jewelry and all sorts of trinkets. It's just crazy. There's some good cosplay of that.
Amazing.
Yeah, the siren. Yeah.
Because it's just so beautiful. And yeah, I want to see more in different things everywhere. And I love that all these streaming competitions are really kind of revving up like what we can see. And it's our entertainment is so much more interesting these days. And I think there are more possibilities than ever to create unusual and fantastic.
Yeah. There's a lot of projects going around that, in a sense, nowadays people are more into recycling IPs, but at the same time, these streaming platforms are also helping a lot of indie directors to try to create new stuff. So they will throw some money at it, like make a short limited series, and we'll see if that works out. And even these anthology shows like Sex, Death, and Robots, it's a great forum for these animators to come up and create some interesting work. And it can vary a lot in themes and duration and whatever. So it's just a great way of like consolidating all these animation projects into a show. So that's good.
Word of mouth on some brand new show that everybody's talking about is worth more to people than having like the back catalog of Friends or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are hungry for something a little different and new and unique. That's great, and it does give leeway to creators making something that's more than just bubblegum.
Yeah.
Are you a cosplayer, Midian?
Not especially. I created a Thanos comic book version of Thanos and dressed my husband up as that and put him out to Denver Comic-Con maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of lost out on a lot of Halloweens over the last 15 years, kind of needing to work that day, getting, other people ready for their costumes, and kind of like in film, kind of considering it kind of like the amateur's day, because we do this stuff all the time. I've kind of gotten out of dressing up myself. However, this year, I am going to be the Black Queen from Barbarella.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
So, and I might take that character further. We'll see. But I'm really excited about doing that. So I'm kind of feel like I'm getting my Halloweens back. I'm kind of like saying, no, I'm not going to work that, unless it's for, something absolutely amazing. I do like working cool shows on my birthday. That's fun. I think I was on Secret Headquarters last year, just for a day on my birthday last year, which was fun. But that's just coming out soon. I feel like that's a place that I'd like to get back into, and I do appreciate other people that cosplay, and I like to help cosplayers get their thing together. I love going to Dragon Con, which happens here, and we had full tickets for this last year, and we didn't go because COVID just seemed to, I don't know, conventions are still a little bit hard, concerts are a little bit hard. So I'd like to get back into that a little bit more. I do appreciate it. We did I think one of my favorite things we did was remember the old Gargoyles TV show?
Oh, yeah.
A friend of mine who's been a cosplayer and an actor for many years, Jesse, and he's in Denver, Jurdak, and we turned him into Goliath.
Cool. That's cool.
Fun. I sculpted most of the pieces, and we kind of like purchased some pointy ears and designed the wig and painted him super purplishly blue. We did it, and then we did a final one. Actually, the colorist and it just so happened, like we worked on this like a couple months before for Denver Comic-Con, and they announced what is it, 25th, 30th, I don't know, reunion for that Denver Comic-Con. And we just happened to be making a Goliath that year. The wings were a little bit questionable. They were thrown together at the last minute. They're kind of cloth. But the colorist for the show actually told us that we got the color spot on, which is a difficult thing because you look at Google and you'll see him as purple or blue and like all these different colors, and kind of like trying to figure out the right shade to throw him into.
Right. Yeah, especially in a place that's well lit and stuff. Did you make feet and all that stuff for him?
We had kind of, the feet were kind of like in the same level of as the wings. They were kind of like, they threw them together at the last. Yeah. So we really focused on the head and the prosthetics.
Wow. Was it a padded costume, or was it just his own body?
This built. So he's quite fine just the way he is, and we just made his body. So yeah.
That's cool. Wow. Looking forward to seeing your Black Queen.
Yeah, thanks.
I recently got a tape because I collect tapes, but I got this tape. I don't know if you ever worked in haunts, but there was a tape that came out recently of an old 1994 show called Fright Masters: How to Run a Haunted House, and it's a really cool seeing how people would do haunted houses on Halloween, and how this one guy started this tradition, and he ended up becoming like, it's Dr. Dread and Professor Nightmare. So there's a bunch of news footage of like this guy. One of them created Salem's famous witch mansion. The other guy was a guy who created the Fright Trail. And so it's funny to see, how much fun goes into like Halloween haunts and haunted houses productions and stuff, and how much work is it to keep them like working at that level, because those things are just a lot of fabrication, a lot of makeups, a lot of keeping the ghouls inside your haunted house like at a good level of makeup and stuff. It's a lot of work.
It's so much work, both with film and haunted houses, and anything that's like worth doing, really. It takes more work than it's really almost consciously feasible. It's absolutely unreal. Even a bad haunt or a bad movie takes an enormous amount of work to do. Haunted house work is probably the best, lowest paid work I have ever had. I wish, makeup artists that worked in haunted houses could earn a little bit more, because there's so much more that they could do with, and they rake in money. These haunts, some of them make a lot of money, but they don't really want to put it back out into the makeup, because there's kind of like a good minimum level that's pretty good for most haunts. I have to say that Netherworld here in Atlanta it's my favorite haunt that I've ever been to. Having worked in haunts and love horror and all that stuff, I'm very kind of difficult to scare. But this is a haunt where they're using the texture of what you're walking on, and like how the levels are, and the claustrophobic and kind of creatures and animatronics kind of like getting in your space, and like darkness, and they really pull all the psychological tricks. And then they also have really quite good makeup effects every year, and so haunts are fantastic. There's nothing like scaring people. It is the best feeling in the world to have some like 6'5", totally like badass dude like crying on the ground like, yes, I did it.
We used to go to Great America every year for their Halloween, and in San Jose. One time we were there, and we usually get that fast pass, so they give you a frightful key and stuff, and it's fun. One time I was coming out of one of the haunted houses that they had all over the park, and there was a guy with a big werewolf mask just standing outside the exit of the haunted house. And my wife, Sarah, she just started, "Oh, it's a puppy." And he kind of leaned back like this, twisted his head, is like, "Do I look like a puppy?" I think he took it personally, but it's a lot of fun. I love that stuff. You got dry ice everywhere, weird clowns and like roller skates scaring people. It's so much fun.
It'd be tough to be one of those actors, because they get punched a lot, don't they?
No.
Punched and pushed and elbowed and
yeah.
And then your hands get hurt, from like pounding on stuff. Like,
oh yeah.
You can get somebody, like you find a good person that's like real jumpy. And the thing that you want to do is try and get them as many times as you can before they leave your whole area. And like different areas and be like, yeah, I got you again.
Ryan, you were at my wedding, and we ended up going in Vegas to the Eli Roth's Goretorium.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh yeah. There was a guy with a chainsaw with no chain on it going, "Ah!"
Yeah.
That was fun. Then they had a bar on the other side of the Goretorium where you have like circular saws with babies' heads stuck to them. And it was a pretty cool bar. You get to see the strip right in front of you, and it was fun. That was the fanciest one I've been to. It was pretty well produced. Nice. That was definitely really, really great. I wish that they would, and I've never been to one of those, but I know that Clive designed some haunts, like Clive Barker's Freaks. And there was another one for Halloween nights that he did for like Universal, I think. There's some videos on YouTube that explain the story of those, but I need to really get into that stuff, because I've seen some art that Clive did for some of those haunts, like Freaks. It was Freaks with a Z. And but I wish I could have gone there, but I wasn't even in the U.S. at the time. So America really goes all out on Halloween. We don't really celebrate Halloween in Europe. Well, it's getting there now, but for the kids. So I didn't have that tradition of haunts or Halloween. So it's fun now that I'm here to go to horror conventions and stuff and Halloween haunts and see what they do. I'm about to move to the Cleveland area. So last weekend we were checking out houses in Cleveland. Some of those houses look almost haunted. Some of them we saw, they were kind of really old, but they were huge houses with like 4 bedrooms and a basement and an attic. And it's just the 2 of us, but we wanted to check out the house. So we went to see one. Total murder basement, spiders everywhere. We went down to the basement and glass panes are cracked and there's like all sorts of, and Sarah turns to me and said, you could do a Hellraiser fan film in this basement, And I was like, yeah, we could, but we're not moving into this place. So yeah, stucco walls and you can see the little wooden slats inside the stucco. It's like, yeah, I could put a light through that and make it like a Hellraiser thing. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, some houses are just really, really old and creepy.
That I made, Juice, is the thing hatches in the basement, and the basement was not a place that we ever really went or stored anything in. Some guy was like there sometimes. It was like a really kind of not great apartment in Denver, and we actually never cleaned it up. And I remember they found it like a while back, and I could hear them talking about it because it was like a mound of sand with like these painted alien eggs in it. Oh. It was like hatched and stuff, and then we just kind of like left it there, and like some blood on the walls and stuff.
Oh wow!
About creepy basements. We went into one and shot that, and then left it, and probably freaked them out pretty good.
Yeah, sometimes realtors don't even notice that stuff, and they'll just let you go in there and check out the house, and you're like, "What happened here? This is weird." It's like the realtor that took us to see these houses. We're going into the houses and. There's dead birds trapped inside the windows, like between the screen and the window. There was like 3 dead birds. And I was like, what the hell happened here? This is weird.
Yeah.
And
realtors don't have a lot of control over what the owners are doing. And especially if it's tenants in there. I have to, as a former realtor, I have to speak up for them.
Yeah.
Tenants, in fact, will go out of their way to make it bad.
Mm-hmm. Sure. But so sometimes I imagine there's weird stuff that shows up when people are renovating a house and they discovered, someone decided to like paint like a pentagram underneath the carpet before they put the carpet on or something like that. And it's like just kind of a joke that people leave behind. But at the same time, it's like makes you wonder, like, what happened here?
Yeah, there's a history to everything.
Like someone was pulling a carpet on their house in Reddit the other day and they found a shape that kind of looks like a person's body. And they were like, I wonder what happened here, because it was like this weird stain on their floor when they took out the carpet and they saw that. And it looks like a body was there for a while. Wow. So it's like, I wouldn't want to live there. Like, damn.
I checked into a hotel recently and it wasn't clean. And I didn't realize until after I lifted the phone and turned around that there was blood all over the sheets. And so, yeah. Ew. Some kind of crime that happened. It was and like drips on the nightstand, and it was like 3:00 in the morning after a 16-hour work day. Last thing I wanted to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you get hit in the face with something that you're not really prepared for, which is why we have horror in our lives, right? So that we can be a little prepared.
Right, but you don't want to actually deal with real life horror.
No.
But this is my time to shine, because I am addicted to watching this show called Another Dirty Room. And I love that, because these guys will go into like bad motels and they will take their luminol and black lights and particle measuring devices that measure how much dust is in the air and all that stuff. And they will go through the room, check out the pillows, take out the pillowcases, and some pillows are just nasty.
Oh, okay.
They will take out the stuff, the mattress cover. They will find bed bugs all over the edges of the mattresses. They will put on the luminol, turn on the black light, and everything turns into a freaking fireworks show. It's like, it's just nasty the way some rooms are. Makes me like not want to go to a hotel room ever.
It's reasons we got an RV is so that we could avoid hotels. I always get extra flat sheets, and they always look at me weird. But like, I'm not sitting on that sofa.
Yeah.
I see.
That's happened on that sofa. And my own pillow, or at least my own pillowcase, and my own like flat sheet as well.
Same. Yeah, I bring stuff like that. I bring my own pillow to hotels. I don't want to put my face. Like, I've never actually had the courage to take out the pillowcase and check out the pillow the hotel has. But I've stayed at good hotels, so.
And they're not washing those pillows every time. And
no.
When you sweat, like, yeah.
So that's just crazy. And turn on the luminol, and there's like streaks on the bathroom, and you're like, oh my God. Like the whole toilet area looks like it's lit up like a blue light. And it's
the worst.
We've all had some, especially when you're on location and you don't have many choices to stay at a hotel, right? So you got to deal with that. So it's safe for you to bring your own pillow and sheets and stuff like that. But yeah.
I always wear your shoes, especially if there's carpeting.
Yep.
Once in New Orleans, I came back from a Guar concert, and I was just completely soaked. And so, and I had I'd forgotten my key. So I had to slosh my way over to the front desk and ask for a new key. And they're like, "What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital?" I said, "No, I'm fine."
You were in the splash zone?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was in the front row center. So I was completely drenched, and I left these bloody footprints back all the way to my hotel room.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Did you watch This Is Guar on Shudder?
Not yet. I want to see it.
Yeah, I started watching that last night, and then Sarah saw me watching, and she was like, "Stop that. I want to watch that with you later." It's like, okay. So it opens up with the guy. The opening shot is the guy like behind the building at the venue with these giant tanks, putting the food coloring in and attaching a hose to make the blood so they can squirt that out during the concert. Yeah. And he's just explaining how that works, where they have to find the hookups for the hoses and stuff. Sometimes it's behind the stage. Sometimes they have to run it over to the bathroom or whatever. Yeah. It's like, it's great.
They'll cut a guy's head off and train the stump at the audience for the entire like 5 minutes of a song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been to a concert, but I did make some microphone stand props of shrunken heads for a show back in there in Pittsburgh days. So,
wow.
Yeah, something I made was on some gore show some time ago.
That's awesome.
They do Days of the Dead in Pittsburgh too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I haven't been there, but I know that there's going to be some interesting guests coming to the Pittsburgh one. Isn't like one of the Nightbreed actors going there? I think. I'll have to look that up.
Nice.
Pittsburgh.
You should keep an eye out for Robert Kurtzman Makeup Effects. Bob and Marcy are wonderful people, and they're in Cleveland. They're makeup effects people. So some of the best I've ever worked with. Really cool people.
There's some good stuff on YouTube. Like you mentioned, did you mention ADI a while ago? So Alex McGillis, he's splitting from the company. Yeah, and they had this YouTube channel that was really amazing, where they would have all sorts of behind the scenes stuff that they would do, like FX tests and trying out early makeups and stuff like that. And Nightbreed, I don't know if you ever saw this. You might have seen this before, but Hugh Ross, who plays Narcisse in Nightbreed, have you ever seen the picture of his early makeup design where all the red stuff was actually green and scaly like a lizard?
We did.
Yeah, that was an original. The early design for Hugh Ross was that once he tears off his scalp, the stuff underneath would be green like a lizard. So it's amazing that this sort of stuff just came out with the Occupy Midian movement.
Like V kind of.
Yeah. When people in the effects, image animation and stuff, they started stopping by the group and posting stuff. Oh yeah, we got some pictures here. Look at this. Look at that. This is me doing Baphomet or whatever. And we got to see all that material, because for the longest time we didn't really have a lot to see about Nightbreed. It was just the movie with a bare bones edition. Yeah. But it really is such an amazing movie, such a formative movie for people like me and you and Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier, is that Clive being so embarrassed by it, but it really touched a lot of people in its original form. I mean, and now it's even better, but even back then, with all of its flaws and with all of the tampering and stuff, it still completely turned my life around to, now I've been doing this podcast with you for 10 years about Clive Barker, and that was the start of it.
That's a lot of weekends.
Yes,
but we get to meet great people like you, Midian. So
yeah.
It's amazing. I want to thank you so much for listening to our podcast. It's always great to find and be able to interact with people who actually listen to us, because sometimes it feels like we do this in a vacuum. Yeah. And then the Kickstarter rolls over and we're like, you like us. You really like us. And it means so much to us.
Yeah. Correct, right? But yeah, it's really great. Thank you guys for doing this and for delving into people and the things that Clive Barker does and has done, and because it's really unique and special.
I think it's really neat also that you're a huge Clive Barker fan and you're in the industry. I mean, I think that you're keeping the spirit alive.
I'm sure he has a huge, he's one of the reasons that it happened, for absolute certain. I don't know if I hadn't been exposed to Clive Barker, if my life would have turned out the way it had. So I'm eternally grateful to his influence and creative endeavors and everything, whether it's the writing, the painting, the directing, the imagineering of all of this. It's nice to have people out there that do multiple things well and different. I really, really, really dig it. So thank you guys. I know you guys dig it too. And to the listeners out there who continue to dig all the weird shit that's out there, because it's what makes the world go round.
Where can people find you on social media, and do you have a website?
MonsterMakeupEffects.com, Monster Midian on pretty much every other place, whether it be mostly Instagram. I suppose that's what I'm on. I don't do a lot of Twittering.
Is that at Monster Midian?
Yes.
Like with no space in between, or underscores? Okay, got it.
And then Monster Makeup Effects has different places on Instagram as well, but I'm most active on Monster Media.
This was so cool. I really want to thank you for joining us for this episode. And hey, I'm looking forward to talking to you when the Hulu Hellraiser comes out. See what you think about it, because are you stoked about that one? Jamie Clayton plays Pinhead, and there's a new box. I don't know if you've been keeping up with that stuff.
I hope it'll be good. I'm a really big fan of 1, 2, and 4. So those are like my big things. I love 4 so much because of the history of the box, and I was a big comic book reader, and so I really loved that Le Marchand kind of thing. Don't try and just Hellraiser and space it. Beyond that, I haven't gotten super excited. I hope it doesn't just feel like a flip. Here's Pinhead as a woman, because I think that always the female Cenobite was always the scariest to me. Like she was, Pinhead seemed like kind of like a pushover. Like, he loved Kirsty, like he was gonna let her go and all that stuff. But like the female Cenobite was there for business.
Yeah, when she comes up the stairs, like dragging her knife on the wall, it's really intimidating.
Yeah. I kind of hope that there's some of that in there, that she really brings it. And here's hoping. I'm sure the makeup effects will be fun.
The first big budget Hellraiser movie in decades, right? I mean, they've been getting smaller and smaller. The last one was below $200,000, I think. The last budget.
That's right.
I think so. Yeah.
Hard to make good for that. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Well, we'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll be able to continue the discussion with you when that comes out, know what you think about it. That would be great.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much, Midian, for joining us. I love your name. I love what you do. And, thanks for being a part of this.
Yeah.
Keep it gory, guys. See you soon.
And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to teepublic.com and search for BarkerCast.
Thanks for listening.